So it sounds like this jurisprudence about, how could you possibly use the privileged category of race action clause has gone through this evolution, and there's been different types of exceptions that the court has considered possible, but in this case, they say we're just too far past that. These institutions have overstepped and not stayed within that narrowly tailored grounds. I have heard observers on left and right say that there's potentially some wiggle room built into this decision, and there is a notable passage that describes and I guess warns institutions to watch out for trying to just do the same thing again through essays. And yet we've seen a lot of colleges make announcements focusing on what some see as sort of a loophole in that language. Rainu, can I ask you to weigh in on that? How do you see that the decision and that really crucial portion that talks about the role of using essays and how universities should think about race?
Sure. So what was really interesting was even less than an hour after the court released that decision, around 10 a.m., we saw messages released from Harvard University's president, the University of North Carolina, and really colleges and universities throughout the United States, quoting that portion of Chief Justice Roberts's opinion, saying, while the court has struck down the overt use of racial preferences for underrepresented minorities in elite college admissions, college education admissions broadly as well, you still can speak about your race if it's tied to, for example, overcoming disadvantage or adversity in a holistic way. What's really interesting, though, is that the immediate sentence after that portion of Roberts' opinion says, though, as you alluded to, Michael, this is not simply a backdoor way in which colleges can, in fact, discreetly grant racial preferences. And he also references the two dissenting opinions from Justices Sotomayor and Jackson, in which they suggest, perhaps colleges and universities can turn to student essays in more of a holistic review sense. So it seems as though institutions of higher education throughout the US have clung on to that one sentence in Roberts's opinion and ignored the rest. And I feel like that's much to their detriment. They are going to face further lawsuits if they do try to incorporate racial preferences through a more covert method. Edward Blum, who was behind Students for Fair Admissions and other cases concerning racial preferences, also came out after the decision saying that he and his organization are going to keep a close eye on colleges and universities. So I do anticipate there to be further litigation if, as it seems, colleges are going to kind of pursue a backdoor method toward granting racial preferences.
Yeah, and I'd love to explore sort of how practical we think that might be, but I want to make sure I bring in my colleague Musa. Musa, come on this question. What's on your mind?
Yeah, my concern, one concern that I have looking at the ruling and the way that some universities have already responded to the ruling is that there's a sense in which if schools rely more heavily on essays, and especially on essays to where people appeal to their identity or background and their history of overcoming adversity as a means of selecting people, in many respects, that could result in an even more regressive selection policy than we already have. So there's all sorts of research that shows that, for instance, essay content more closely tracks familial income than SAT scores do. There's work that's done by sociologists like Lauren Rivera that finds that one of the benefits of going to like elite K-12 schools is that you learn how to write these kind of compelling stories for gatekeepers at elite institutions. So you can tell the kind of story that they're looking for. Someone who comes from the bottom, rose to the top, but still keeps it real, a kind of bootstrapping Horatio Alger story. Whereas people from less advantaged backgrounds, to the extent that they write about adversity at all, oftentimes they try to hide actually some of the adversity that they overcame. They think it'd be embarrassing or detrimental. But they also don't write about it in the same way. So they focus, for instance, on all the people in their life who helped them rather than talking about the heroic things that they did and things like that. And those stories don't tend to resonate as well with the people making decisions. So to the extent that they focus more on these kind of essay content, especially essay content that's designed to like tug at the heartstrings of people who do admissions at Harvard and things like that. It's going to be students from affluent backgrounds and students from who attended like elite private K-12 schools that are going to be advantaged in that selection criteria in an even more dramatic way than if they're just making, in a sort of blanket way, giving advantage to people on the basis of race.
We've here